to make what we do more efficient, and identifying ways that we can kind of lighten some of that administrative load that we all have. I know that we have a lot that we have to do as agents, and so sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming. And so I developed a way for us to reach out to our clientele that was really, the main goal was just to make things a little bit easier for us. And so I'll show you today what we put together in Manatee County, and then I'll be happy to answer your questions as we go along. And now I'm using the platform Qualtrics, which maybe just by like a raise of hands or indicate in the chat box, you know, if you are familiar with Qualtrics, if you use it in your counties. I know a lot of folks have access to it. Most of the universities use it as their survey platform. Good. Okay. So most of you are familiar with Qualtrics. And so this is the platform that we use, but I imagine that there are other survey platforms that you could use in a similar fashion if you don't have access to Qualtrics. We identified a need for cost-effective mass communication in our county. We looked at options like SurveyMonkey, Constant Contact, and a few others, and we really just found them to be cost prohibitive. We didn't have at the time, and we don't currently have, a county-wide newsletter that's kind of managed and sent out by a central individual in our county office. Each program area is responsible for that mass communication to their clientele. And so when we looked at setting up a SurveyMonkey for our program area, it was going to be you know, over $1,000 a year to be able to serve the number of individuals we have in our contact list. So we really just couldn't afford setting something up in one of those services. We also wanted the readers to be able to engage with the content. So we wanted to have live links. We wanted to have, you know, ways to engage them in providing us with, you know, with information. We also needed it to have a dynamic contact list because we have people signing up all the time at our plant clinics or at our educational events. So we needed to be able to frequently update that contact list. We also needed people to be able to choose to unsubscribe if they were no longer interested. So we were looking for all of these things in our communication platform. And as I looked around, I realized that we could use Qualtrics, which is something we already have access to for free through the university, to not only just act as a survey instrument, but we can also use it to inform, to provide educational information. We can collect information via Qualtrics. It can be updated monthly. Multiple users can edit the information that exists in a single survey by setting up collaborators, and it allows us to have a dynamic contact list. If you scan the QR code here, it'll take you to an example of what our monthly communication form looks like. So you're welcome to go ahead and scan that now and kind of flip through it as we go through the next few slides. I'll give you a chance. I'll leave it up for a minute. So one of the other nice things that's really great about Qualtrics is that it is automatically in an accessible and mobile-friendly format. So when you develop your survey instrument, or in this case, our communication and survey tool in Qualtrics, it sets it up so that it's mobile-friendly. It also provides a lot of recommendations on how you can make it more accessible, how you can make your information more accessible. And so at the very beginning of our monthly communication, we have timely horticulture updates. And so here, this was at the beginning of the summer. You can see we included information about giant African land snails because they had recently been found in a county near us. We are preempting information about heavy summer rainfalls and mosquito control opportunities, ways to control mosquitoes in your yards, all the things that we have to worry about down here in Florida. And I will take a second to talk about how we create these horticulture updates that we include. We actually have about 7 to 9 years now of data from our plant clinic, where we've been tracking the types of questions we get over different time periods. So we can kind of preempt some of those frequently asked questions with some of this information. So if we know that at a certain time of year, we start to get a lot of questions about mangoes, mango pruning, mango fertilization, we'll go ahead and we'll preempt those questions by including them in our horticulture updates. And these are put together by Master Gardener volunteers, and then they are kind of edited by myself and one of our program staff. We also include a link to our newsletter webpage. So we have a fabulous group of Master Gardener volunteers who develop a monthly newsletter. It is a public-facing newsletter. It's not intended for a Master Gardener audience. They do a ton of research on these articles, and we have developed a standalone web page for them with an index that allows people to kind of search by topic to look up different newsletter editions that might be relevant to what they're looking for. So we include that link here. We have a little description of what the garden bench is. And then I also have developed a plant clinic question portal. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the very end. But you can see I also have a link here that asks people if they have a question. This online plant clinic question portal allows individuals to upload a photo, and then all of those inquiries are automatically emailed to my program staff, who disseminates them to Master Gardener volunteers. If Master Gardener volunteers can't answer those questions, comes back to myself or the program staff to answer those. And then you can also see that we have an opportunity to include links to our upcoming webinars and events, and we include the registration link there. So far, you can see that it acts a lot like a kind of standard newsletter communication tool, right? We're giving people relevant horticultural information. We're giving them links to our newsletter. We're asking them to sign up for classes. Great. The next page is where we can get information from them. So not only are we providing them with information, but we're able to glean kind of an informal needs assessment during this monthly communication. So they can select from potential class topics. If they're not interested in any of the ones in that list, they can go ahead and they can just type in the chat box below the class topics that they might be interested in. And then you can also see that we have the happy face slider, which I love. It's a great way to kind of assess how people feel about the current level of information that they're receiving from our office. So it kind of lets us take the pulse of our audience, identify whether or not there are some class topics that we should be focusing on, and whether or not they're happy with the kind of information that they're getting from us. It's really easy to go into Qualtrics and create contact lists. And so you can see here, I've got a couple different contact lists on the screen. One of them is the residential hort mailing list. And so we go in and we actually update this monthly. We save it as a .csv file, and then we just upload it to Qualtrics, and it automatically identifies whether or not there are any duplications. And if there are duplications, it just doesn't send two emails. It just gets rid of one of them. So it only keeps one of those email addresses in there. It also provides you with information on whether or not they're getting bounce backs, whether those emails are actually functional. And so you can scroll through the list and you can see it'll put a little X mark next to the ones. It'll tell you whether it didn't go through or received a bounce back, and you can actually remove those individuals from your contact list. It's pre-formatted. They give you an example of how to do it in Qualtrics. So it is really nice and easy just to go ahead and update that contact list. These are individuals who either sign up at our plant clinics, at our events, at our extension office just in general, or they have the option to also add their email list via a web portal. In order to send this out to everybody, we had to figure out, okay, we know we can distribute surveys through Qualtrics. So how do we allow people to view the information and have access to it over a long period of time? So you go into your distributions for your survey, you go into emails, and then I've preset a template email that goes out. And so you can include whatever kind of images, graphics you want there, and the message that you want. And then this is very important. You need to go down to the link type select multiple completes, and then that allows them kind of go back in and look at the link if they didn't read all of the information once. Okay, and then you can schedule when that email is going to be sent. So let's say you've got everything put together on the 28th of June and you want it to send out July 1st, you can go ahead and you can schedule that to send that communication out when you want it to go. So these are some of the results from 2023. So we looked at over the course of the year, we had over 1,600 engagements with the content. So that's individuals actually responding to those survey questions that we include in the communication tool. 13 Master Gardener volunteers were thanked for their efforts. So we do have a section in there that allows individuals in the community to thank a specific volunteer. And this has been really great for us. I use this information at our general membership meetings to call out specific volunteers and recognize them for the work that they're doing in the community that's recognized by community members. So it's not just me noticing, oh, you gave 200 hours this month, great job. It's somebody went out of their way and specifically thank them for their efforts. And so I've found this to be a really great way of encouraging and boosting morale. We had 281 individuals provide input on future class topics. Plant ID was the most requested, and so we've gone ahead and we've set up a few different plant ID classes, and they have been filling up. So that was a really good bit of feedback that we received from our clients that they wanted more of those types of classes. And then, we had 92% of the respondents indicate that they are happy or very happy with our content. So that's good too. They're pretty happy. They like what they're hearing about from us. But, maybe if we had reached out to more people who weren't familiar with us already, that answer might be a little bit different. But it's good to know that our clients are happy with the content we're providing them. We've also found a consistent increase over the course of the 2 days following distribution in the traffic to our Garden Bench newsletter webpage. So remember I said we link to that newsletter webpage. We can go into our Google Analytics and we can track the amount of traffic going to that Garden Bench newsletter webpage. And we find consistently that the first couple of days following this monthly communication, we see increased traffic to that newsletter webpage. We also see when we include classes and events in this monthly communication, we see an uptick over the couple of days following when we send this out in our Eventbrite registration. There's usually a little burst of 5 to 10%, and then it kind of slacks off again. But we can definitely see that boost from sending out these monthly communications. We also have seen, I mentioned our online plant clinic inquiry form that we use to collect questions from the public. So in sharing this with our clients, we've been able to we've had over 230 submissions. So individuals, like I said, they can upload a file. It's automatically emailed to one of our program staff who then disseminates it out to the appropriate Master Gardener volunteer, or it comes to me if it's something that I need to deal with right away. And we have created a follow-up survey where we have as a task in our plant clinic, Master Gardeners will then use this follow-up survey for plant clinic inquiries, and we're sending this out to people not only who submit online, but we're using the same survey for people who walk into our plant clinic, and we ask them for the specific behaviors that they're changing related to their question. And what I'm finding from this is that a lot of the folks who come in, they might ask us a question about why their turf grass is dying. And we are seeing behavior changes in irrigation, fertilization, and pesticide management. So we have some really direct impacts that we can attribute to the questions that our Master Gardener volunteers are answering, which I know can sometimes be a hard thing to quantify. So I've been really excited to be able to kind of incorporate this survey mechanism into all of our different communication tools. There are challenges though. For the annual reporting, I was originally creating one survey that I would go in and I would edit each month, and then I would send the same survey out. What is difficult about that is that then there's no way for people to go back and access that old information if they want to. So we've changed it now where we copy the survey, update the information, and send that out as a communication tool. So when I go to do annual reporting, in Qualtrics, there's a function, you can go to your reports tab and you can develop a report that pulls from multiple surveys. So that just means that at the end of the year, I'm going to have to go in, I'm going to have to set up a report, and I'm going to have to choose the questions from all 12 surveys that I've sent out over the course of the last year. So that's a little bit challenging, but once it's set up, it shouldn't be too difficult to keep it going for future years. The other question is how to report this. And so, you know, when I first started talking about this, I received a lot of feedback from people saying that a survey can't be educational. Like, you can't count a survey as an educational tool. Well, obviously, this isn't just a survey. We're also providing people with educational content. So we're disseminating information to individuals. We're doing it by email, but we're also getting feedback from them. So it doesn't really fit into any of the really neat and tidy boxes that we use for our contact reporting. So I'm still trying to kind of figure out how best to do that. One of the really nice things about including that plant clinic inquiry form and then having that impact data related to what specific behaviors they're changing is that I can kind of show a direct correlation between this monthly communication that we're sending out and then their access to that plant clinic inquiry and their ability to get good research-based solutions that they're then applying in their landscapes. So, you know, I'm kind of trying to figure out how that all fits together and how to report it. And, you know, here in Florida, we're kind of doing our best to tell our story in our reporting. And I think that's what most of us do. But again, it doesn't fit into those kind of neat, tidy boxes. I want to find a way to set up an automatic flow for follow-up using this same contact list and format. And that's been a little bit challenging for me. And so I'm still working on setting that up. I think it's going to require a little bit of coding. So I'm going to have to do a little bit more research and bone up on my Python. And then future considerations, again, can pages, blocks, flow be modified for easier viewing or to include content from multiple program areas? I would love to include content from our family and consumer sciences agent or from our water resources agent and have them be able to be modifying that content and provide it so that I can send it all out at once. And so those are some of the things that I'm thinking about moving forward. And so that's really it in a nutshell. I didn't have enough money to use Constant Contact or SurveyMonkey. And so I tried to come up with a creative solution, and we've had really good feedback from it so far. And I would invite you, please, to provide any suggestions or questions that you have. I'll go through the chat and answer them right now, but this just takes you to a Microsoft form that allows me to kind of track some of the engagement with this content. So I'll leave that QR code up for a second. And okay, let me look at these questions here. Okay. Yeah, so that question came in about whether my volunteers can access Qualtrics, and that answer is no. The volunteers don't access Qualtrics, but I do have program staff that can access Qualtrics. So our newsletter team develops some of those updates. We call them like the hot topics, and they send them to our program staff who can upload them into Qualtrics, or they get sent to me and I upload them into Qualtrics. But the volunteers provide the content, and then we just put it into the Qualtrics system. If you have somebody that has, so in Florida, if you have a UFL email address, I can add you as a collaborator in Qualtrics. And so I have shared this survey with a lot of other folks as well. And yes, so Danielle asked the question if there's a way for people to subscribe to receive communication. So there's not really a subscribe button that we can add to Facebook pages. That's one thing that's nice about SurveyMonkey or Constant Contact is they have that like embeddable subscribe button, but we do have a link that we put on our webpage and we include in a lot of our information and on our social media page that allows people to share their email address so they can be added to the contact list. So it's not as easy as a click this button to be added, but it's a follow this link and put your email address in and you'll be added. Brenda asked, how many photos can a client upload? I think I have it set right now that they can upload 3 to 5 photos, but it also depends. You can go in there and you can modify that. You can also kind of set parameters for what kinds of files they can upload. I found that when I first put that form together, I hadn't noticed where to set the file types. And so people were only allowed to submit a PDF. And so it didn't work. And so I had to go in and modify the file content to allow all file types or just JPEGs. And that, now I will say if you limit it to just JPEGs, people that have iOS devices, like an Apple, like an iPhone, it'll be harder for them because their photo files are named something different. So I would just set it to accept all file types, and then it kind of eliminates that challenge. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna stop sharing my screen.
Okay, Alyssa, there was one question at the top of the chat there about capturing from Susan. Do you capture demographics of the clients who are asking these questions?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So we have an optional demographic section to the survey. So it includes all of our standard demographics. We have a little disclaimer at the top saying that it's optional for them to include that information. I find that maybe 10% of the people who actually provide content or submit through the online plant clinic portal are providing that demographic information. Yeah, you're welcome, Susan.
Okay, so I had a couple of direct questions about how difficult it was to set it up. Like, can you walk us through any of those details easily, or?
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever put together a survey in Qualtrics before, it's as simple as that. We use a lot of text blocks, and I organized the pages in a specific way so that like all of the horticulture hot topics would be included on the same page, and then all of the upcoming classes and events would be included on the same page. So you do some modification, to the pages, make sure that the flow is right. But if you've set up a survey in Qualtrics, it was really simple. The challenge comes, so for us with the online plant clinic inquiry form, the challenge there was in setting up those kind of automatic workflows, and that just takes a little bit more digging. But I found the Qualtrics forums to be pretty helpful for that. And you just go into the workflow and you kind of set it up in there, and then you test it, make sure it's running right before you publish it. Let me see here. I'm going to exit my full screen real quick. Let me see if I've got Qualtrics pulled up here. I can show you what that looks like real quick because it's pretty simple. Okay, I'm going to share my screen just so you can see what this looks like for the online plant clinic inquiry form. Okay, so here you're seeing the online plant clinic inquiry form, and what you do is you go over to the tab that says workflows. So for this one, we have the workflow set up so that there's a new action that occurs when a survey response is received. Okay, and if you click into this, okay, you can see that when there's a survey response received, it sends an email. And the email goes to our program staff. When it pulls up here. So it goes to our program staff. It has a little bit of information. And what's really important here is you want to include response report, okay? So this is going to send that survey response to your designated individual. So survey response has been received. Boop, we're going to send that survey response over to the program staff. They're going to look at it. They're going to say, okay, this is a question about, you know, proper pruning of orange trees. I know that I have volunteers who can answer this, so I'm going to send it along to them, and they're going to respond to the inquiry. If it's something like, here's a question from an HOA president about the legalities of trimming street trees. Oh, that one needs to go to Alyssa. That's something that a volunteer shouldn't be responding to, and then it gets sent along to me. And that's really, you can set up a lot of different workflows. It can get pretty complicated and messy. I've tried to set up some other workflows, and I ended up, I'll share a mistake I made. I tried to set up an automatic follow-up survey to the plant clinic inquiry form, and it ended up, instead of just emailing the person who had submitted a request, it emailed everyone who had ever submitted a request, and it did it every time somebody submitted a request. So I got an email from someone said, I just got 10 emails in the last like 7 days. So I had to go back in and remove that workflow, and I'm going to have to work through some of that. So it can be complicated, but again, those forums in Qualtrics are pretty helpful, and I've had some pretty good luck finding answers to my questions there. No, so Sarah asked a question about the newsletter, and our newsletters are actually laid out in Canva. And so we have Master Gardener volunteers who create the content. I'm lucky enough to have somebody on staff who is amazing at laying out the articles in Canva. They actually have a newsletter kind of template that you can use. And then we save it as a PDF and we upload it to a standalone web page that we have on our county extension web page. So we have them all PDF'd on our web page, and then we've actually set up